What's good, y'all? It's Zylar. So, as amazing as the changes that were announced to be on the way were with the most recent dev livestream, there was something that wasn't addressed that threatens to overtake all in-game map juicing for the rest of PoE 2's life cycle, similar to how it has already done so with PoE 1. What the? As it stands, there's no exclusive in-game juicing that you can't just stack Delirium oils on top of. For increased rarity, rare monsters, pack size, and just layers of Delirium in general. That makes Waystones way more rewarding on average, which kind of means you're stuck doing it forever. There's no way to really escape it. There's no point in not, if you can handle the difficulty increase of not adding Delirium oils to the Waystones. Now, in some weird, ideal, perfect world scenario, you could argue that by going for more character power, you can put on more delirious. By going for more character power, you can add on more layers of delirium, which will make your maps more rewarding. And to get more character power, you have to give up stuff like rarity. Seeing as it's not really the situation or the case at all, what eventually happens is you just stack the rarity and you also just stack the layers of delirium. It's pretty much how all in-game juicing works, and it will foreseeably always work unless something is done by GGG. I really don't want every single map to look like as it stands, PoE 2 is literally worse about this than PoE 1. Corrupted maps are kind of the only thing that offset just adding layers of delirium to a map, because it's somewhat annoying and usually not very efficient to roll a bunch of maps well, and then with the very limited amount of maps that you happen to roll well, add layers of delirium and then corrupt them. It can be too costly, because if you corrupt them after stacking on some of the more expensive layers of delirium, such as distilled greed, the distilled paranoias here, there's some higher ones here that aren't really worth doing. But if you were to do that, corrupt it, and then the map hits just wrong, it just drops your rarity, your quant, maybe it keeps number of our monsters like it did here, you're just kind of sad. It's not worth it. You lose the oils, you're not going to run this map, you lose the rarity and quant. It doesn't work. They don't play well together. So in PoE 1, where maps, there are plenty of strats that are focused around running corrupted maps, you actually do escape the gray screen demise that happens to all in-game juicing. However, in PoE 2, corrupted maps don't really seem to be very popular as a strat you can run. I'm planning to do some testing with corrupted waystones and a tree based around them and see if this is even worth doing at all. But to be honest, I don't have a whole lot of faith. But at this point, I simply have to try something, because if I have to listen to this shit anymore, I'll go literally insane. It won't be just in the game. I will go crazy. So, we will be desperately trying something. And I think this strat has some legs to stand on, especially post the patch. So, even if this doesn't pan out too well with my testing before the patch, as long as it doesn't seem completely borked, we will revisit it when the patch goes live. Now, again, I don't believe corrupted maps should be the only way to escape this. That is also quite worrisome. Corrupted maps, while one avenue of in-game juicing that typically escapes the gray screen palooza that happens in the in-game, I think we need more solutions than just that. I think we need something, if I had to give an example, like Wildwood. While it works with Delirium in PoE 1, in PoE 2, its sequel league, perhaps you would enchant it on the maps, and it would work similar to how the oils do, and therefore, once you did the wildwood enchant on the map and added wildwood to your map, you would be unable to also stack the oils with it. So when you would pull up this window and put in a map and try to add it, it would give you some error like this waystone has no room for modifiers, more modifiers, as opposed to what it's saying now with Delirium. So just to create something that you just don't just go, oh, yeah, I won't do it with Delirium until I'm powerful enough to, and then I will, and thus everybody is subjected to. It won't go away. It just won't go away. Jokes aside, the game desperately, and even PoE 1 needs this, but honestly, at this point, PoE 1 is probably just a lost cause. It's something that a lot of players who end up getting into the in-game, like really deep into the in-game, Fubgun and Empyrean, I would say, are textbook examples. They don't ever seem to mind it too much. They don't really complain or bitch about it too much. But they also don't seem to care. And the players who seem to care, like I would say your Mathel types, or in terms of notable content creators who engage with in-game heavily, Mathel tends to bow out of deep in-game juicing before you get to the point where you just start adding layers of Delirium, you start adding all kinds of absurdities to the maps to get the most you can out of them. So you have a group of players who they don't like adding the gray screen to everything. They don't like the constant in the background, but they're going to cave. They are going to submit to it because it's simply the best thing you should be doing. It is the correct thing to do. It gets you the most currency. And I have a few ideas, few solutions in order to escape that. The first being the Wildwood example that I just gave, where it would be an exclusive mechanic to Delirium, not something you could stack with it, unlike pretty much every other mechanic that's currently in the game. But there is another solution that I thought of that, while more of a trade league solution, would curb some of the rampant every other league mechanic, including not just the ones we currently have, but ones added in the future, if Delirium is something you can stack on top of it, regardless of whether or not you're investing into it with tablets in order to get more of what you're doing. Let's say Blight 2.0, let's say Harbinger 2.0, let's say Wildwood 2.0 without the changes that I recommended. You're just going to add Delirium on top of that shit as well with the oils because you can, and it makes sense too. However, one thing that I've noticed is if you run a waystone, you run a map, so you come over here and you find something on your atlas and it already has Delirium. Well, let's use this Riverside map, right? If I were to put this map in, it would overwrite the mirror and thus generate a Deliriumed map with oils. The mirror there would be no benefit. Essentially, you never want to double up. You never want to both stack a Delirium map on top of a mirror, and that was generally true for how it worked as well in PoE 1, but I think in PoE 2 it could operate differently. It's already a bit weird that, unlike every other league mechanic where the way that you force more of it into your maps is through tablets on towers, that Delirium uniquely can be, you can increase it through tablets, but also just force it onto any waystone you want to run. I think if you want to curve this, there should be some inherent bonuses, some benefits and strategies to where you would put Delirium onto the maps, and some bonus effect would occur when you also ran a Delirium mirrored map on top of something that you put Delirium oils on. You could even add nodes to the Delirium tree up here in the top right to make that even more lucrative. And what this would do to the trade economy is people who are investing in that strat, they might be producing so much, it might be so valuable to them and with the rewards that they're getting that they would buy up the oils and they would be in high demand for their Delirium maps, whereas you running Breach, Ritual, or Expedition, or whatever they've added in the future, it wouldn't be worth it for you to do that as well. It's worth it for them due to all the bonuses that they're gaining by investing into it and doubling down on it. They're setting up really elaborate tablets around a section of maps. They're setting up their tree, they're buying up the oils. Essentially, unless you are double down investing in Delirium and you are totally okay with gray screen and the gray music and all this fucking madness, it wouldn't be worth it for you to do. You'd be better off simply not engaging with that and focusing more on the strategy that you're doing, and you get to have your nice, beautiful maps with their beautiful soundtracks that it is a shame we are all turning off and putting a gray filter on top of pretty much anybody who's still currently doing in-game juicing and mapping with rarity and whatnot. So that is my second solution that they could do. They could opt for. The bonuses are the ins and outs. They're a bit more. I wouldn't know the specifics, to be honest, of what those rewards would look like. What doubling up a Delirium oiled map with a Delirium mirror would look like. But the end result goal should be to highly incentivize players who want to double down into it and reward them for doing it, and reward them at a ratio to where for them it is worth to buy these oils and use them despite how expensive they'll get due to the demand. But for other people not engaging with that strat, it won't be worth it. They shouldn't buy the oils. But moving on to the final solution, and maybe a placeholder band-aid type solution if neither of these two things can be implemented in a reasonable enough fashion, timely fashion. Can we just get a toggle? Can we simply just give us a toggle? I like Delirium. I don't want to see it removed and banned. A lot of my friends who do a lot of in-game juicing, when they saw that Delirium was one of the mechanics that were going to be introduced, their jaws dropped, they gasped, they sighed. They were like, fuck, here we go again. I thought we'd finally escape the gray screen music and the fucking... But I, again, tried to cope. I was naive. I was like, nope. Surely it'll be only if you're really doubling down and investing into it will it be worth doing. Surely they won't just have it to where it infests every single piece of content that you're doing in the in-game again, and the only way to escape it is corrupted map farming, which sometimes it's a coin flip on whether or not that's ever even worth engaging with. So surely it wouldn't be the case, but it was, and here we are. And now, as a stage of bargaining, if you will, I would really just appreciate at least the addition of a toggle, where if you run Delirium, you turn on this toggle, it'll put the effect out, it'll be very transparent, maybe, you'll know you're in Delirium, but it won't actually be the hardest gray filter, grayscale application to the map, and big reduction to visual fidelity, one of the biggest reductions to visual fidelity that you've ever seen, and we can get the original tracks of the map as well at the same time. Implementing it's kind of weird. I know you track whether or not you're still in it by the gray fog and the timer. Maybe the timer's enough. Maybe it's kind of weird to you interact with the breach mechanic and a different track there's playing, and there's a shift in what's happening. But I think Delirium, unlike the other mechanics, where it's local to the expedition, the ritual, the breach, once it has after opening and then closing, it stops. It doesn't warp the entire map around it. Whereas Delirium needs a toggle because it's simply obnoxious. It's insufferable. You have to engage with it if you're doing in-game juicing, or you just opt into less rewards for quality of life and a sanctity of mind. But we shouldn't be forced to have to make these decisions as players, and it kind of just sucks. Ultimately, I know this is an issue very few players get far enough into the in-game to actually care about. Even fewer of those players care about it to begin with, i.e. Fubgun, Empyrean, I'm sure countless other people who aren't content creators. They just have their in-game music turned off, or they're running the game at super low resolution anyways. They don't actually care about the visual fidelity. But as someone who does, and actually likes the in-game tracks, I don't want PoE 2 to have the same issue PoE 1 does with in-game juicing always being gray screen. Hopefully they can look into this. Was kind of sad it wasn't addressed or mentioned in the patch. but it is what it is. Having to make this trade-off really kind of sucks. Again, hopefully the video increases awareness around this topic, and if enough people share this sentiment, we can get some changes on this. If you like the video, you know the deal down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!